Whether or not you think the world is ready, it's time to give the fullness of who and what you are to the world in every way. Not to hold back or stay a couple of steps behind and use false mediums in order to present the message that we've come to present. When I say false mediums, I'm talking about any of those things that sit between us and ourselves. Because the truth is, we are only ever speaking to ourselves. When you're speaking to the world, you're speaking to yourself. When you're speaking to God, you're speaking to the truth of who you really are, your innermost self. So you're only ever speaking to yourself. And the fear of delivering a direct message often brings us to a point of wanting to have some thing, some medium in between us and the so-called other, in between us and the client or us and the world. I don't like that word client so much, but between us and the world, which is really between us and ourselves, such as cards or astrology charts. These things are unnecessary. In fact, they've been unnecessary for a while, and you might not like to hear this. But it's been many, many years that these items, these accoutrements have been very unnecessary. In fact, they've been in the way. They only help to solidify further ego structures, further psychological structures, which actively impede us from being in the direct light of the heart, the golden light of the heart, the truth of who we really are. All of those structures simply further to create a divide, to widen the divide between the ego structure, which we're still operating out of, and the light and the truth of the soul, disallowing full embodiment. You don't need cards. You don't need astrology charts. You simply don't need them. And there will be a difficulty for a lot of people in letting go of these things between us. You don't need to call yourself a channeler. There's nothing to channel. You're either speaking as consciousness or you're speaking as ego. What could you possibly channel? All of the so-called beings of light that people are trying to channel or claiming to channel are either going to deliver the same message as the truth of your own soul, or some twisted manifestation, some twisted version of ego, of consciousness. That's all. That's all. So if you're claiming to channel an alien race, that alien race is either enlightened or it's not. And if it's enlightened, it's no different than your own soul. So to say, I am the channel, and I am stepping aside, or I am allowing space for some collective to come through and channel through me, that's unnecessary. That is the most unnecessary thing. Forgive me if you don't like that. This is much deeper than what we like and what we don't like. This is really coming back home to the truth of the simplicity of who and what we are and the nature of what we're here to do. You don't have to put the blame, so to speak, on anybody else. It's not me saying it, it's God saying it. It's not me saying it, it's Christ saying it. It's not me saying it, it's the Pleiadians saying it. It's not me saying it, it's the card saying it. It's not me saying it, it's the astrology chart saying it. No. No more of that deflection of responsibility. No more of that self-separation. It's you. It's all you. It's all you. And there's no need for any of the training wheels anymore. It's all training wheels, the channeling, the cards, the astrology charts, any medium, anything, any object sitting between us. And that includes the psychological objects of ego, as well as the psychological objects of superego. Any notion, any idea, any concept held onto by the mind and sustained through time, and then propagated, sold, used as a medium of leverage or the maintenance of social power. Because when we simply sit here and sit in the realization of the openness of the golden light of the heart, which is love, which is joy, which is peace, which is the source, the origin of everything, which contains all the intelligence necessary to do the work that we need to do. The real healing, the real moving, the real resonating. It all comes from here, and everything that needs to be spoken, everything that needs to be heard, transmitted, all comes from here. When you're using some aspected device, whether it's channeling or cards or astrology or any other kind of so-called mediumship device, all that's happening is aspects are being spoken of from a conceptual point of view. And that keeps us running around in circles. That's why all readings essentially come out to be the same. They all always say the same thing. They might jump from this aspect to that aspect to that aspect, but when you stand in total perception of the entirety of the wholeness of what is, what you see is that as long as there are aspects, there's division and fragmentation, separation, which inhibits an actual perception and a surrender to the wholeness, to the totality of what is, which is finally what we're here to do. And it keeps us in ego consciousness thinking I'm the healer and you're the one being healed, or I'm the channel and you're the listener, or I'm the divine one and you're not, or I'm chosen and you're not. And this is ego. This is all ego. I know that's difficult to hear. Maybe. I hope it isn't. Because the reality is you are what you are. You are what you are, with or without the words, with or without the tools, with or without the clothes, with or without the hair, the beard, the makeup, the piercings, the tattoos, or the idea that I don't need piercings and tattoos. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's clothing. It's just the interface. And when the interface is allowed to dictate the message, when the interface is allowed to aspect and fragment the purity, the wholeness of the transmission, then we've stepped into ego. We've lost our way. Our own personal identity has become more important than the function that this instrument of the body and the mind is here to serve. The body is an instrument, and it's an instrument that is meant to conduct pure light. The mind is meant to be open, free, clear, and pure, which it cannot be as long as there's the idea of me and you, me and God, me and the world, right? Me as the channel and that entity or beings from some other galaxy or dimension that I'm channeling. No. That's division, that's fragmentation. And we are much more intelligent than that. We're much too whole, much too integrated to have to do that. That's just more excuse making. That's a way of trying to eat the cake but take no responsibility for the cleanup or the cooking or... do you hear what I'm saying? Funny metaphor, but it's a way of us simply avoiding living 24/7 from the truth of who we are. It's a way of giving ourselves an out and an excuse to fall back into exploitative and violent and abusive ways of being. When I'm sitting here, I can be the channel and I can be the reader and I can be the healer, but then in my daily walk and while I'm doing that, by the way, if you haven't noticed, people, when I say I'm talking about we, us, the people who have been called, and who have gotten hung up on using different objects and items to relay messages, because the egos of the people who we are trying to serve are hung up on personality and on personal identity, and people don't want to come, or there's an idea that people don't want to come unless you draw them in by their star sign or draw them in by ideas of your next love and your next career and what's happening in your life upcoming. Let's look at the cards and find out. It's just a way of drawing people in and then using fantasy and projections and fear and greed and desire and loneliness and despair, which is what we're here to help bring an end to in people. It's just using that to move them around, and it becomes really disingenuous is the wrong word. It's just cruel while pretending to be helpful. It's not actually helpful. And it's a training wheel experience for those of us who are called, because you may feel at first very, very frightened of simply sitting here without anything between us and speaking and just letting people have it, just speaking the truth of the heart to the heart of the one sitting in front of you, in awareness that you're speaking to yourself and letting the full thing come out, the full transmission. And there's fear that, well, I won't be heard, I won't be listened to, or it's not captivating enough, it's not enthralling enough, and enthralling means enslaving, so does captivating. And so there's a part of the art of, there's an attempt at seducing people to come in and kind of hold them captive to their desires and their fear and their uncertainty when you're using things like astrology and cards and mediumship. That's all just egoic clutter, it's psychological clutter that's in the way. It's in the fucking way. Forgive my harsh language. It's in the way. And there's absolutely no reason to use any of that anymore. Either speak or don't speak, but don't throw the fault or the guilt or the responsibility out there. Don't play the game of when I'm sitting in the chair and the camera's on, then all of a sudden I'm a pure, perfect channel for the messages of God or wisdom or truth or some highly advanced civilization in the ethers or in the stars. But then as soon as the camera's off, well, now I'm just back to being an ego that sometimes messes up and sometimes gets it right. Do you not? I hope you see the folly in that. If you're in and out, when you're walking your daily life, sometimes I'm in ego, sometimes I'm in spirit. If that's how you play the game in your daily life, then you see that you can't actually claim to be in full spiritual presence when you're sitting in front of a camera playing with cards or charts or so-called mediumship. It's more delusion. And it furthers the divide between me as the ego and me as the soul, which is the same thing as furthering the divide between me and God, or me and truth, or me and myself, or me and the world, or me and you. It's all the same division. And these training wheels, which is what they are, they're training wheels. It's obsolete. You can't claim to be a master at balance if you're still using training wheels. And there's nothing initially wrong with training wheels, but what do training wheels imply? Fear. And it's no good to use training wheels and pretend you're not. If you can't ride, if you're too afraid to ride with balance, that's fine. But it's a great disservice to you and to everyone that you're here to serve. It's a disservice to the heart, to the soul, and ultimately to God. It's a disservice to sit here using training wheels while telling yourself and everybody who's watching you that you're not using training wheels. It's lying. Cards are training wheels. Astrology charts are training wheels. However complex the science behind it might be, it's training wheels. However complex any knowledge of any traditional system may be, orthodox or unorthodox, it doesn't matter. They're training wheels. The entire thousands and thousands of years worth of history of accumulated knowledge and concepts and theories and ideas and practices and methodologies are training wheels. They're training wheels. And when you step into the fullness of the light and the truth of who you really are, that's seen instantaneously. And the fact they're all seen to be a burden that can be dropped. Because we're here to be with ourselves in love, with each other in love. We're here to be in love. We're here to be in truth. We're here to be raw. We're here to be real. We're here to be in compassion. We're here to transmit directly the peace, the love, the joy, the bliss, the ecstasy of the source of creation, which is simultaneously a great intoxication and an incredible sobriety. And this means not fucking with ourselves in any way. Not messing with ourselves and not fucking with anybody else inadvertently because we're too afraid to tell ourselves the deep truth. We are here to heal. Healing doesn't mean I heal you. Healing means the recognition of the truth of the omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, and omnidimensional source of being, which is love itself, which is pure light itself, which is pure wholeness itself. The recognition that who and what we are, and who and what everyone and everything is intrinsically and innately whole. That's what healing means. The word heal comes from the Indo-European, the Proto-Germanic word Heilausch, which means to be whole. It means holy, whole, and healthy, to heal. And we come back to wholeness by recognizing the eternal truth of who and what we really are, who and what everything really is, our inseparability from God, from the source of creation. That's healing. And seeing yourself and everybody and everything in that wholeness of soul, in that wholeness of being. Whatever the psychological surface is doing in its mechanical undulations. Never confusing the psychological token, the structure, the ego, the personality, the body, with the person, with the reality of that soul. The person is the mind, is the personality, is the psychological structure of thought and memory, which includes the body. But who you really are, the soul, is not the person. The body is an instrument. The mind is a tool. Thought, emotion is technology. Desire is technology. Thought and emotion. Thought is the most basic tool you have. The body is an instrument. The soul is eternal, all-encompassing, ever-present, ever-free, unmoving. Never has it moved. Never have you moved. There's no distance between you and God in the slightest. There's no distance between you and truth. There's no distance between you and peace, between you and love. Whenever you're using any medium, whether it's mediumship of channeling, it's just a refusal to really dive into and take responsibility, to take ownership of your soul, or to allow the soul to take ownership of the body. Really, that's it. To let freedom itself, joy itself, peace, love itself, God itself, the ecstasy of being itself, the golden light of your own heart, to refuse to allow that to fully take ownership of your body and of your voice and of all the faculties that you've been endowed with as an incarnate being. Still trying to be in the driver's seat, the ego, the personality, the desire, trying to be in the controller's seat, in the driver's seat. That's not its place. It's time to step into and embody the full truth of who and what we really are, without any unnecessary gimmicks, for the sake of us all. And every time it comes time to shed a layer, it's uncomfortable, because we get so habituated to our channelings. We get so habituated to the way that we work with people. You might think, well, people come to me because of the pick a cards, or they come to me because of the oracle readings that I do. They come to me because they see me as a channel. They come to me and I've marketed myself as a channel for this deity and this being and that being. They come to me because of my astrology. They come to me because of X, Y, and Z. Well, it's time to tell the truth. It's time to tell the truth, because this is not about pulling in as many people as we can with gimmicks that just end up creating ultimately further divisions between them and their own being, while causing them to believe that they're getting closer. Maybe some are getting closer, but ultimately to come back into the truth of who you are means to drop everything, to drop all concepts, all notions, all beliefs, all ideas, all methodologies, all practices. That all gets put aside. That doesn't mean you don't take care of your body. Of course you do. It means you take care of yourself completely as a manifest incarnate being. Maintenance is part of incarnation. physicality. But it means that you don't lie to yourself, even in subtle ways, about who and what you really are. And then you take proper action in that. So it's time to let go of the training wheels. It's time to let go of the unnecessary crutches. You're healed. You don't have to hobble around on a cane anymore or on crutches anymore because you think that that's what people want to see. And of course, we're not talking about physically. We're talking about as a soul. The soul needs no guardrail. The soul needs no handrail. The soul is situated perfectly and eternally in non-movement, in the source of creation, in God. We're here to embody that, not to call ourselves anything, not to take on titles or give ourselves titles in order to feel that we can function more smoothly and seamlessly in the world. If one is supposed to use certain titles, if one is using certain titles, if the community has given one certain titles, fine, so be it. But the truth of what you are is what it is, with or without any words, with or without any titles. We're here to serve. We're not here for our own glory or for our own image making. We're not here to simply achieve status or fame or any of that. If it comes, it comes, and it's there for service. And to actually serve people in the deepest and truest of ways requires that there be nothing in between us and the people that we're serving. Whether you let it go all at once or whether it becomes a gradual sort of cut off, but then eventually the final leap means to let everything that's remaining go. And people that only want entertainment, they'll drop off. A lot of people, most people in fact, that come for tarot and astrology, cards, mediumship, they want entertainment. They want spiritual entertainment. We're not here to simply provide spiritual entertainment. People will be entertained anyway by this or that or the other. Does that mean that you lose your sense of humor? Fuck no. No, this is not about cutting yourself into pieces. It's about ceasing to cut yourself into pieces, not being aspected. There's no need to live in aspects. People may always perceive aspects, that's their business. Words can only come one at a time. But the truth is there's a great transmission of heart happening while the words are being spoken. And this transmission is always happening. We could just sit here in silence, but people like words. And right now the words are necessary or they wouldn't be flowing, they wouldn't be coming. But it's time to remove the masks. It's time to remove those layers that are in between us so we can get right to the work. Because this is about healing. This is really about healing. This is about finding the true voice and really letting the true voice come through. Not holding back anymore. There's no need to keep ourselves on the other side of a barrier anymore from the people that we're working with. When you simply tell the truth, and you really tell the truth, from the space where nothing can be grabbed, nothing can be hooked, then there's no fear and there's no worry. People who can hang, they'll hang. People that can't hang in the heart space, they'll disperse. And that's what this is about. It's not about creating an artificial notion of the heart so that people can feel they have something to grab onto. That's just perpetuating delusion and illusion and self-deception. We're really actually here for genuine healing, not fake healing, not faux healing, not tokenistic healing, not the feeling of healing. People feel good and they say, oh, I feel like I'm healed. It's deeper than that. It's much closer to home than that. We're here for the real deal, not to perpetuate feel-good, tokenistic. Is there anything wrong with feeling good? No. But chasing the highs of feeling good is often just another means of avoiding facing the heart, coming into the heart, and allowing that opening to take place, which is the cleansing of the layers of artifice, the layers of psychological impoverishment, of pain, of guilt, of shame, of torture, of hatred. Everything that has to be released in order to step into the truth of who we are. And those who are ready are ready. And to avoid, to postpone working directly with the ones who are ready and who are crying out for release and the return home, in order to satisfy the egos and the desire for entertainment of the people who are only wanting entertainment, who are concerned with when are they going to get their lover, when are they going to get their house, when are they going to get their job, when are they going to get their breakthrough. The breakthrough comes when you stop worrying about yourself. That doesn't mean that you neglect the body. It means that you see that everything that you have is given to you on loan. And you can't take it with you. Everything that you give is given to you as a platform for you to stand upon and to, one, step into liberation for the sake of you and the world, and then to do whatever work is given to you to do to help facilitate the liberation of all beings, who are in the deepest sense already free, just ignorant of their own freedom. So we have a responsibility to walk upright, to walk in alignment, to be living examples of love, of peace, of joy, of freedom, not in a contrived way, but to constantly surrender every moment to the truth of who and what we are. And so it requires turning into fear. That means turning and facing fear and walking into it. Not being afraid to face fear, not being afraid to face pain, not being afraid to face sorrow, not being afraid to face suffering, not being afraid to face violence without getting violent in return, facing suffering without suffering. And that takes all you've got. You must feel suffering. You must feel everything in order to know it. But then you must move through it, not idle in the suffering and the sorrow, move through it. And discover that which is eternal, which you already know. If you're still here with me, you already know. You already know. You already know. You must be, or you couldn't even sit here with me. I know this. You couldn't sit here with me if you didn't hear what I was saying, if you didn't understand, if you hadn't already been called by grace. So we're here to be vehicles of grace. And whatever we do, whether you sing, whether you dance, whatever service you provide, whatever it is you do, cooking, cleaning, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is you do it from this love. You do it in this attitude of service, this place of gratitude, of graciousness, of love, and of seeing that everybody, however close or far they appear to be, we're all held by Source, we're all in God, we're all in love, we're all in grace, whether we realize it or not. And everybody is going through whatever journey they have to go through to shed the layers, and it's never easy. Whether someone takes a moment to do it or a lifetime or many lifetimes, it doesn't make a difference. Because the same things have to be faced. It's simply, will you face it at once or will you drag it out? But there's no waking up without feeling the pain. There's no coming into consciousness. There's no opening the heart without feeling the sorrow of the world. Without feeling the sorrow of your own life. Without feeling the suffering of the world. The suffering that you have inflicted, the suffering that's been inflicted on you, and the suffering of all beings, past, present, and future. The whole of the suffering has to be felt at once. That's the breaking. That's the breaking. And then that's not a promise of there will never be pain again. The body may get hurt. You will look at the world and you'll see terrible things happening. And you'll be able to bear it without losing yourself. and you'll be able to act appropriately without needing to see yourself as a hero. The minute you contrive an idea of yourself as a hero, you become a villain. You open the pathway for yourself to become a villain. The true hero does not see themselves as a hero, doesn't need to see themselves as a hero, or as a savior, or as a chosen one, or as a twin flame, or as a soulmate. You can't contrive this. The real thing is the real thing and does not need the words, does not need the titles. Because the real thing is here regardless. The real fact of the relationship is, or it is not. And what we're dealing with is relationship. Which means no bullshit, no contrivance, no guilt, no grief, no shame, no nothing in between. And so you can't just push it away and deny it. You have to feel it. You have to cry. You have to cry. Be willing to cry. Be willing to cry every day. Cry. Doesn't mean wallow in. It means feel fully what arises to be felt and move through it. Let it move through you. Let it be gone. See it for what it is. Otherwise, you can't serve. You'll just tell people contrite things like, oh, don't feel that. There's no need for contrivance here. Or ideas of, I've already done it. I've already awakened. I've already got enlightened. I've already done my healing work, and so now you need to listen to me because I've already done it, and so you... The work is always here and now. Part of wanting to keep ourselves safe, to protect an identity, even a higher so-called spiritual identity, is by becoming a spiritual tyrant. Does that mean that when you see truth, you don't say something? No. When you see the ignorance of violence, you say something. You see the ignorance of violence and of destruction and of brutality, you say something. It doesn't mean that you become subdued. But there's a difference between acting in truth, acting in perception, and being a tyrant. Being a spiritual warrior is not the same thing as being a tyrant. It's beautiful to be here with you. I hope that you've heard me and that you've received this. And if you need to sit with it, watch it again, reflect over it, ponder over it, look over it carefully, please, by all means, do what you must. But I hope you've heard, I hope we've understood each other. May all beings be free. May you know the freedom, the eternal truth of who you really are. And may you be a beacon for that in the world. All blessings.